SCCF is proud to present the Sanibel City Council Candidate Forum on the Environment. Live from SCCF on Sanibel Island tonight, CEO Ryan Orgera will moderate the forum with candidates Mary Bondurant, Scott Crater, Tim Drobnyk, John Henshaw, Jason Maughan, and Mike Miller. And now, Ryan Orgera.
Welcome, Council candidates Mary Bondurant, Dr. Scott Crater, Tim Drobnyk, John Henshaw, Jason Maughan, and Mike Miller. Rest assured that all COVID-19 protocols are in place as we are outside and our 6 candidates are seated safely apart. Masks are required when we are not in our seats. I want to remind you all that SCCF is strictly nonpartisan, as is this race, as is the office of Sanibel City Council. SCCF will not make any endorsement, but we're proud to be part of our city's public discourse on the environment. This March 2nd, Sanibel voters will select 3 city council members, making this the most significant election for our island in recent memory. Sanibel is singular in the state of Florida, not just because of our wonderful neighbors and friends, but because we have chosen balance over unfettered development. Sanibel is special because of the wide expanses of green, the healthy dunes, the interior wetlands, and the critters we all love. This is all possible because of the genius of our founders. The Sanibel Plan remains world-renowned for its capacity to maintain the prominence of nature in our city. We'll be among the keepers of the Sanibel Plan, and here at SCCF, we believe it's important that you understand your candidate's nature ethic so that you can make an informed decision at the ballot or mailbox. As SCCF enters our 54th year of conservation, we protect and care for our natural world as ardently as ever. Tonight, you will hear questions specific to Sanibel, but also questions of regional and global concern as our threats are now external, largely external on our island. Before I turn over to our candidates, let me explain the rules to our viewers. I will ask questions specific to candidates based on past public comments each has made, as well as questions that all candidates will respond to. Candidates will all receive either 1 or 2 minutes, depending on the possibility of a follow-up question where candidates will receive a 30-second time to reply. I will hold candidates to their allotted times in interest of fairness. So now, let's get started. Candidates, we'd like you to please give our viewers a quick introductory statement, and you're going to have 30 seconds to do this. We'll start in reverse alphabetical order to change it up. And so that means, Mike, 30 seconds, please.
Okay, well, thanks, Ryan, and thanks to SCCF for sponsoring this forum. I consider myself blessed to have the time, the health, the energy, and the interest to be able to serve my community and apply problem-solving skills to the issues facing Sanibel. I enjoy this kind of wonkish work, and I look forward to serving if I'm elected.
Thank you. Jason.
Thank you, Ryan. My name is I'm running for the City Council. The last 4 years I've served on the City Council. I'd like to work together with that team to continue to accomplish all the good works that we've managed to take care of in the last 4 years. And I would particularly like to thank the No-See-Ums for turning out in force for tonight's event.
All right, John.
Thank you, Ryan. Thank you for organizing this very special event. I've been on the island for almost 20 years, and I really care about Sanibel. I love it. I'm committed to the Sanibel Plan, the comprehensive land use plan, and the principles behind it. I have the time, energy, and experience, education to make a difference on the island, and I look forward to doing that.
Thanks. Tim.
Good evening, Tim Drobnyk. I have lived here on Sanibel for 21 years. My extended family has been on the island since the early 1980s, so the roots run deep, I feel, in this community. I've got good, I guess, public awareness as to what's going on with the issues on the island. I've been serving through managing youth sports for the last 10 years, and I just look forward to the opportunity to continue serving the community.
Scott.
Yes, I'm Dr. Scott Crater. My wife and I and our 3 kids moved to Sanibel 13 years ago, largely because of the natural environment, largely because it was completely different than any other place that we had ever seen in Florida or in the coastal Southeast. We came from Charleston, South Carolina, and it was a hard place to leave, but Sanibel was better. I'm elected to council.
Mary.
Mary Bondurant. So 20 Green Water just got me excited. Stayed a week, bought a house, and moved the next month. And I'm very excited and hope to be serving on City Council here on Sanibel.
Thank you, candidates. So before getting to our main questions, we want to briefly discuss the Sanibel Vision Statement. The first line of the Sanibel Vision Statement, which hangs in the council chamber, says, quote, Barrier Island Sanctuary, one in which a diverse population lives in harmony with the island's wildlife and natural habitats, end quote. How will you specifically work to uphold that statement? Will you go in the same, we will go in the same order as the introductions. So Mike, you have 2 minutes to answer that question.
Okay, well, the vision statement is a very important part of the Sanibel plan. And as you say, the sanctuary is primary. We have to protect the sanctuary and develop as a community only if, in fact, we can conserve the values of sanctuary, which include diversity and living in harmony with wildlife and nature. I think key to that today is dealing with the water quality issue. We have a problem with too many discharges from Lake Okeechobee, and even apart from Lake Okeechobee, we have a problem with waste. We have to deal with that, and that involves dimensions of ag runoff and septic tanks and biosolids and a whole bunch of things. We also have to deal with water quality right here on Sanibel, which includes dealing with the Sanibel Slough as an impaired waterway. We're making progress on that. I think the improvements to the Donax reclamation facility will be very helpful. Phase 4 of the sewer system will also be helpful. Perhaps we need to take a look at improving the fertilizer ordinance. But I think all these are key to protecting our environment and protecting Sanibel as a sanctuary island.
Thank you, Mike. Jason.
Well, I'll tell you what I would like to do is to continue to do the work that we've accomplished over the last 4 years and before that. It's one of those things about what matters is not times like this where there's opportunities, but in times when there's nothing going on and the fight continues. I'd like to continue to see projects such as the Drobnyk water treatment plant, the Jordan Marsh, all things that instrumental in, along with the team, that we can look after ourselves and sustain our economy so the sanctuary is maintained through that sustenance. One of those things you have to take into account is you have to live it. To understand Sanibel, you have to live Sanibel. You have to embrace entirely the idea of a sanctuary and our existence within it as an integral part, not only but the stewardship that goes with looking after the place we came from. I grew up on Sanibel as a boy after I got here from Ireland. I want the same lifestyle that I grew up with, where you had a john boat before you had a car, and everybody went around the bayous, everybody spent their time in the flats. Oh, the thing is that we may not have all the excitements, entertainments of Naples and big cities, etc., but the rule always was people on Sanibel make their own fun. They make their own fun by going out and enjoying themselves in the environment. Protecting that so generations in the future enjoy that lifestyle and the well-being that that gives each one of us is essential going forward.
Thank you, Jason. John?
Yes, the question is how do we plan or the Barrier Island Sanctuary and the principles behind it. We are going to get more and more pressure franchises coming in and doing things or trying to do things. We have to make sure we hold true to the principles behind the Sanibel plan. Protect our Barrier Island. Now, that includes internal, making sure that our businesses are productive, but yet we control the environment, the habitats. We don't put any more concrete down on this island. We preserve the 67% we protect it. Then we look on the outside and make sure, as now, which is poor water quality, and we've got to, obviously, that's got to be number one after we deal with the COVID issue. And then number two, we need to make sure that we, for example, I think a critical component, at least as far as I'm concerned, is for people in the United States to see what Sanibel is, how we live on this sanctuary island. We want this to be an educational experience for people who attend. They have to know why we do it, the principles behind it, and hopefully they take it home to their own and wherever they are to continue the work. And the last component of all this, we need to lead by example on waste elimination. We need to find better ways to deal with our waste. Light pollution, you talked about that earlier, and noise. We need to continue these issues as well.
Well, this is long before people and long before development came along. And as this island continued to, I guess, have this population increase, the wise people that Sanibel Plan 40 years ago realized that we need to have a vision statement. And that vision statement says, in harmony with council, regardless of who's in there, to continue to live in harmony with what was already here long before us. We will follow the Sanibel Plan. Each 6 of us up here are going to follow the Sanibel Plan. That's our blueprint. So we're all going to talk about individual topics, whether it's water quality, coastal resiliency, whether it's stormwater, all those things all come into protecting this habitat. So I'm glad to be here to talk about it, but it's just part of the position that we're running for.
Thanks, Tim. Scott?
People on the island living here all year round, and peak times there might be 15 or 20,000 people. And the key is allowing us to live here and for tourists to come visit here in harmony with the environment. I think the couple issues that are specific that I would pursue, one would be noise regulation to gas-powered leaf blowers being banned, and having only electric leaf blowers or second, I'm pretty passionate about plastics in the environment. I think we have far too many plastics, and Sanibel can be a leader. Unfortunately, the state legislature wants to fight us on this and try to overrule our ability to regulate our own environment for eco-living, such as it is. If human beings the other candidates have talked plant, which will reduce our output of nitrogen and phosphorus into the waterways. But we have 500 to 1,000 septic tanks on Captiva, and there are 100,000 septic tanks in Lee County. So issues. The water isn't just our water, it's everyone's water. And we need to work on that as a group together. We need to try to have an outsized influence on these things. Thank you.
Plan. I tell everybody about it almost on a daily basis in what I do. I'm a real estate professional here on Sanibel Island, and I plan. I tell people this plan was written and it protects every aspect of the island. The maps were to protect the island. You know, SCCF has been here island at. We know we have issues with the water. We know that we have the septic systems and the stormwater waste. So speaking about Sanibel and how beautiful it is, and when you drive over that causeway and have such beautiful water, beaches, and you see those shells, it's unbelievable. And so that Sanibel plan was way ahead of its time in explaining everything. In fact, I read that Sanibel plan when I became a real estate agent. I actually went down and plan book, and I keep it in my office. And periodically, when I have people come to this island and they start talking about like, oh, look at all this as we're driving up maybe Sand Cap Road, and I explain to them, oh no, 2/3 of this island plus needs to work towards protecting that Sanibel plant.
Thank you, candidates. The only such question that we will have tonight in this format, it is a rapid response question, and we think it's an incredibly important one. It'll be the same for all of you. This is an issue that it only will become more and more starkly. So there is no meaningful scientific debate about whether or not climate change, nor does such a debate exist around whether or not humans are exacerbating it. It is accepted by the scientific community. So, do you, quite simply, acknowledge that human-driven climate change is happening? So, start a simple yes or no. Scott?
Yes.
Tim?
Yes.
John?
Yes.
Thank you. Onward. So now we're changing it a bit. Rather than everyone responding to every question, we are going to ask specific past statements you have made publicly, and you will have 2 minutes to respond to each of these. So Tim, we're going to start with you. You've expressed the need to address coastal resiliency in the face of climate change and agree that climate change is happening. But we have an education you overcome change denial among some of our residents.
That's a big question. I think it's just a matter of getting the information out there, whether it's through SCCF. The guys already do a good job, but we as, I guess, council people and we as a community maybe need to have a more concerted effort. Those that aren't here full time, those that come down here to visit, it has to be a marketing. Having a large footprint ourselves into the matter, but we're more affected by it. On hand in terms of protecting ourselves over time, it's an educational process. So how to be a we situation where we get the message out as a community to inform all those people that come here that we're going to be impacted first. We're a barrier island on the coast. So it's there, it's not changing, and it's just a matter of informing.
Mary, you've said that, quote, water, water, water is the most significant long-term like the Sanibel Passage Project or Eden, appropriate water quality protections?
Well, first of all, we have to participate, like we did in Eden Oak. I think Eden Oak, the community, including SCCF, including the city of Sanibel, and including lots of volunteers, participated in the hearing process pertaining to the granting of a permit, and so far that effort has been successful. We have to stay involved, we have to speak up, and I think with respect to dealing with those types of issues, not only those, but the fish farm that's a problem off Sarasota, we have to let our voice be heard.
Well, thank you, Mike. So, Jason, you've stated the need for fiscally conservative, little c conservative, budget policy. However, sometimes sound water quality policies are not the most fiscally conservative option in the short term, although we know they have significant long-term benefits. How would you convince Florida congressional leadership that we need to fund the EA reservoir in the face of billions of dollars in COVID shortfall?
It's investing in our future, Ryan. And I would disagree with the idea that fiscally conservative is a short term. It's a long term. This is going to be a resource for the state of Florida that's second to none. They open up water bodies there, the opportunities for businesses in Central Florida, or South Central Florida, which have been starved, and have only really the sugar industry to look at and industrial agriculture. So they bring more to the table than just cleaning water, but also for the coastal communities having access to a water treatment system where nature does the work for us. That's the same idea with the Jordan Marsh. We looked into it and said we don't need a giant pump, we just need a residential sump pump for a couple of grand from Lowe's that can do the job and then let Mother Nature do the job for us. That's something about. But in the absence of the state, which is going to look for that low-hanging fruit to cut us out of that, we need to be looking inward and saying, how can we offset the losses at the budget at the state level with increases in water quality activity or cleaning activity here on Sanibel? And there's a lot of things that we can do. SCCF has been involved in setting up new oyster bars. There's additionally a great program that involves artificial reefs suspended underneath docks. One of those things I hope to look forward to the future is that being an integral part of new dock construction. That, like a sea anemone, Sanibel becomes a machine by itself, which costs us nothing to go forward. Those are the kind of ways. Push to plan for the future.
Thank you, Jason. John, you mentioned that as a city, we want to lead by example in terms of water quality. Many other municipalities across the country are adopting low-impact design tax credit incentives to promote additional and innovative stormwater infrastructure. Would you be in favor of doing this sort of program here on Sanibel?
I'd be in favor of doing whatever it takes for Sanibel to use the best available technology, best practices around mitigating discharges. Reducing the amount of nitrogen and phosphorus that we're discharging, not only in our waste treatment facilities, but also in our water runoff. The tax advantages work yet. I haven't studied that at this point, whether it would work here on Sanibel.
Those resources, if elected to council, what will you do as a council member to fill that void?
Oh, that's a great question. I think the Southwest Florida Coastal Resiliency Compact is one way to address that void, because it's bringing together all the cities and towns and counties in Southwest Florida who have a common, along the coast, have a common interest in preserving the environment and also preserving our water resources, and particularly preserving the coast for resiliency against storms. But this is the kind of group that can get together and make a bigger impact in Tallahassee than a single city council member from Sanibel. I also think that cities and towns can use aid lobbyists in Tallahassee, because that's the way the sausage gets made. Unfortunately, we live in an imperfect system where money talks. And in places like Tallahassee and Washington, money talks, and agriculture has an outsized influence on state government policy compared with, say, tourism. So we need to work with the Lee County Visitor and Convention Bureau, those kind of organizations, to specifically lobby for the environment. They need to understand in Tallahassee that the environment is the economy. In Florida, the environment is the economy. We don't have industry here. People come to Florida to visit, and if we don't have water quality and a good environment, people won't come. They're going to go on a cruise somewhere else. They're going to go to North Carolina. They're going to go to South Carolina Beach. They're going to go somewhere else. If they read about red tide, they're not coming. So we need to get that message loud and clear in Tallahassee, and if formal lobbying is
should become conservation. We don't need to be larger in terms of our footprint on this island. So again, all for acquiring as much land as we possibly can. Standpoint of course, staying within budget, but definitely in support of continuing where we are with 2/3, make the 2/3 larger.
Thank you. So, Scott, same question.
Yes, I would be in favor of acquiring more lands on Sanibel, but also we need to look right across the causeway, as alluded to earlier. The Sanibel Passage project is a disaster. It's 204 acres. There's only about 6 acres of upland where they could actually put something, and it's this very narrow strip, and they want to put a 15-story high-rise right next to McGregor, right in the middle of all the mangroves. It makes no sense. You're adding cars, you're adding runoff from parking lots, you're adding, it doesn't make sense. So there are these tracts of land that do impact us, impact our water quality, that are right there, and Eden Oak is the same. They want to destroy 36 acres of mangroves and build canals and do things that haven't been done in our area since the 1960s. They want to go back in time and make Cape Coral again in this Eden Oak area, and it's wrong. On Sanibel, there aren't a lot of large tracts left. I'm here, a few acres there, and then everything else, as Tim alluded to, is in a platted subdivision, so those are not really necessarily worth purchasing if there are lots in Beachview that are left or lots in the sanctuary that are left. But there are a few of land that could be purchased on Sanibel, and I'd be absolutely in favor of putting those into conservation.
Mary, same question.
Absolutely. And I would absolutely say that although there are platted lots and in certain subdivisions, I think it would be great if families that are not using those lots or to build on them to turn them over to SCCF, maybe through their family plan. And acquiring as much land around our islands is very important. And so I very much encourage acquiring as much land as we can to keep our island the way it is, because I know we could use every piece of land that anybody would be willing to either sell to SCCF or maybe to grant to us. So absolutely.
Thank you, Mary. Mike, same question.
Absolutely. I would support the acquisition of environmentally sensitive land that's consistent with time. It may be lands that need to be conserved. So yes.
Thanks, Mike. Jason, same question.
Of living it. For over 20 years, I've been a real estate attorney out here, and spending more than 40 years growing up out here, I know the day. With regards to SCCF, I have negotiated off areas, particularly around Ladyfinger Lake, so that there was no giving up both easements and tracts of lands. Additionally, now I'm currently working on a deal to give the Society, Darling Society, a large piece of land that abuts theirs and for their future use. So there are opportunities, but you've got to go out and find them. You've got to, it's one of those things you have something, you involve yourself, that goal happen. Because the only way to retard the effects that development can have is by adding on. And I'm not talking about, in the middle of nowhere that you bought. I'm talking about looking after issues here at home. And we talk about Eden Oak way back when I first started out as a lawyer, more than 20 years ago. I actually represented Pam Acres Trust, which was the original owner of all that. Foreclosed on the developer who wanted to originally build on it and stopped the building there.
Thank you, Jason. John, same question.
So in principle, we want to increase the conservation land. I think we have to be smart about it. We've got to pick the right pieces of our parcels, wildlife corridors, for environmentally sensitive areas, for wetlands, to improve our water quality. Have so much resources, and if I had a chance of buying a piece of property at Beachview, or going over and buying up land just across the causeway, I think that land across the causeway makes sense. So I think we need to be very careful in how we do it wisely for the long-term benefit of Sanibel.
Thanks very much, John. Again, now to another question for all candidates. So let's focus specifically on water quality, this time quite close to home. The Sanibel Slough currently does not meet state water quality standards. SCCF and the city of Sanibel developed a comprehensive nutrient management plan to address this. In light of the current COVID-19 budget shortfalls Sanibel is facing, would you prioritize funding for the recommendations outlined in the plan? And if so, why? So you have up to 1 minute to respond. Let's start with Jason.
It's an asset and something we used to play in as when we were kids out here, and it's something that I've seen the water quality changing. And that's something you don't want to see, because now you are stabbing the future in the back. And when you see these problems, it's something you need to address. I think there is room in the budget to look at the Sanibel Slough, or the Sanibel River, as it's more affectionately called now. I think one of the things, though, you have to take into reality, there's things you need to be worried about, is opening too much access to the Sanibel River and encouraging people to use a resource that should really be left alone or interfered with in the most mild fashion possible. Going forward, I think the important thing to address is just like the Jordan Marsh actually cleans water that goes into the Sanibel River, and it's removing about 60 to 70% of legacy nutrients by the time it comes out the other side. Those weren't terribly expensive, hand in hand with SCCF. I think we can find ways to do it.
Thank you, Jason. John, same question.
Well, certainly we ought to look at all the opportunities in respect to improving our water quality and the cost of doing that, and what's the return. And the Sanibel Slough certainly is a focus area. It's concerned me ever since I got here. And we made it a collection that collect all of our deposits. Obviously is a concern, but we do need to take action. We do clean it up to make it respectable. And
addressed. And so I'd like to focus in on the budgeting portion of it. You know, COVID hit the council. Kudos to so we've been hit financially. Taxes probably going up because our property values are going up. So if we can adjust the budget with all these changes, what our capital projects need to be going forward, I think the Sanibel Slough is right up there.
Thank you, Tim. Scott.
Priority, mainly because Sanibel needs to lead fingers and say, you're part of the problem. We need to actually fix our own but if you go down to the end of out into the Shell Harbor Basin, a vast amount of the interior of Sanibel. I'd also like to take more look at the input. Much cheaper to reduce the inputs than it is to water after the fact. So reducing it a priority to clean the water, because we have to make sure our own backyard is as clean as the water